Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is Eisenherz, back with another part of my tournament prep mini-series. Today we're going to have a quick look at if and how my win rate improved from the last video, and we're also going to have a quick look at how I'm adapting my deck list for the upcoming tournament. So without further ado, let's go. In my last video I came to the conclusion that I need to mull more aggressively for Katra engines so that I'm able to close out the game within the 80-minute time limit, and not just sit there controlling the board with a low hand size until I eventually stumble into a draw. This little change in piloting from Urza control draw combo to draw Urza control combo also meant that I run the risk of losing in the early game against turbo players, because I'd be busy deploying Katra engines instead of controlling the board or keeping mana open for interaction, which would give the turbo players a window of opportunity to win the game. So did my expectations come true? The short answer is yes. Not only did my win rate improve from 15% to 25%, also almost all of my games I lost in the very early games, so around turn 2, 3 or 4. So let's quickly analyze my wins, draws and losses. If we look at the similarities between the games I won, it is clear that in almost all of them I had an early Katra engine like Ristic Study or the One Ring and Manifold Key. So apparently this approach is still the most efficient to carry me into a win in timed rounds. If we now look at the games that ended in draw, we can see that almost all of them ended around turn 8, 9 or 10. They all had in common that I could deploy stacks pieces but wasn't able to draw enough cards in order to assemble a win. I had one game in which I had an early Ristic Study, but so did two of my opponents and the other player had an Esper Sentinel. So basically everyone was drawing a ton of cards and I wasn't able to generate card advantage, and the game kind of became a Mexican standoff where nobody was able to successfully present a win. So again, we see that if I focus too much on control and can't generate card advantage, I have difficulty closing out the game in time. If we now look at the games that I lost, we can see that almost all of them ended in the very early game, so turn 2, 3, sometimes turn 4, because I was either tapped out from casting a Katra engine or I just didn't have the mana to interact because I was last in turn order. It's also very noticeable that almost all of these early wins were carried by one particular card, Dockside Extortionist, and this is to no surprise. If you want to win early, you need to ramp hard, and there is no better ramp spell than Dockside Extortionist in CDH, especially against Urza, because we feed that card like crazy. Therefore, turbo decks are naturally our biggest weakness. So how do we combat that? How can we disrupt the turbo wins, carry the game into the mid or late game so that we can assemble a win? Well, I tested a few cards and made some adaptations to my list. A few of them already performed real well, so let's talk about them. As I mull very aggressively for Katra engines, and I don't have access to unconditional tutors, I need to increase the density of Katra engines in my deck, so I'm testing a ton of different cards. I tested Steel Enchantment, Copy Artifact, and cards like Seagate Restoration, but none of them really pulled any weight. I'm currently even testing Howling Mine. It has a huge blowout potential, but drawing an extra card every turn might be enough to carry us to the mid or late game and assemble a win. This is definitely a highly debatable card in the Urza community, but I want to test it, and if it just doesn't carry any weight, I can toss it back into the bin. So in order to deploy my early Katra engines, I also need more resources in the very early game, and that's why I decided to also play City of Traitors. A lot of poly lists are already on City of Traitors. I don't usually play it in UPS, but I decided to try it, and it has already performed really well. I was able to cast a turn 1 Ristic Study, I was able to cast a turn 2 Urza with mana open, so a lot of good stuff happened, and the blowout of losing the City of Traitors didn't really matter in any of those games. And finally, in order to combat the turbo wins, I decided to play Stifle. It is a 1 CMC spell, so it curves really nicely into Urza. I cast Urza, I get a construct, I have 1 blue mana open, and now I can interact with the early Dockside casts. With Stifle, Stern Scolding, Spell Snare and Blue Elemental Blast, I now have 4 1 CMC answers to early Dockside Extortionist casts, which gives me a lot more security in the early game. What I also like about Stifle and obviously Trickbind is that you can sandbag them like crazy. You can pass on the Dockside, you can pass on the Oracle and hope that your opponents will interact with them, and if they don't, you can still react to the trigger. So you can react at the latest point possible and still deny your opponents their treasures or their win. Overall, having 4 1 CMC Dockside answers feels really great, and I'm also on Trickbind and Torpor Orb, and I'm even considering Hydroblast and other similar spells that can deal with Dockside. So to summarize, I've analyzed what carries me to a win, and playing towards that actually gets me more wins. I've analyzed when and how I lose most of my games, so I'm very aware of that, and I've made adaptations to my list that allow me to combat those losses very efficiently. Finally, in my next 20 to 25 games, I will make sure to start every game with a friendly reminder to play as quickly as possible so that I can actually get into turn 8, 9, 10 and maybe present a win in the late game. Let's hope these changes will help me improve my win rate even more. I will obviously keep you guys updated. And next week we'll talk a little bit about sandbagging interaction or showing your interaction as a political tool. And that's it. What do you think about this new assessment? Did I miss anything? If so, please let me know in the comment section below. I really appreciate your input. If you enjoy my content, please make sure to like, share, comment and subscribe. It really helps me in the algorithm to get my videos out there to a larger audience. Follow me on Twitter, hop over to my Discord server, and please consider becoming a patron. I have different tiers with different benefits set up, so there's something for everyone. And if you too want to improve your piloting and get to the next level, DM me via Discord or Twitter so we can arrange a coaching session. This is Eisenherz and auf Wiedersehen.